deserves to see the public servants paid by our rates adhering to the best practice, and thus I believe the recommendations from ICAC regarding contact between council staff and lobbyists should be reflected in our council code of conduct.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Are there any questions of Ms. Cooper? No. Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Everybody, just to let you know that we are now live streaming. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Hugh Naven, and he will be speaking on item 2.5, and he is for the recommendation. This meeting staff will now unmute you, Hugh. Thank you.
Hey Council, my name is Hugh Naven and I'm here to represent the Womble Beach Save Our Sand community group. The objective of our group is to achieve transparency and true community consultation on any short, medium or long-term plans for work to be done on Womble Beach. All we want is transparency and input into the best options for Womble Beach, and the processes today appear to be in direct conflict with the community participation plan appearing as item 2.5 on the agenda this evening. The key concern about the processes regarding Womble Beach is their lack of adherence to the main principles that the community participation plan promotes. So given the lack of transparency and ongoing community consultation from the task force and processes regarding Womble Beach planning, we the community ask three things. 1, what has the task force achieved and how do we access this information? 2, when and how will the task force engage the community further and appropriately, and when will the council start applying the community participation plan as it relates directly to the seawall? Having now read the community participation plan, it would appear none of the principles in the plan have been applied to this subject. The task force is not giving the transparency they are touting. 3, given the public comments by Mr. Crouch in which he stated build the revetment more and the contradictory nature of these comments, do council support our belief that his position on the task force is inappropriate and conflicting and that he should be removed? Essentially, the community, especially around Womble, just wants to be heard. They want to know what is happening. A task force is operating confidentially with individuals that have conflicts of interest deciding the future of their beach. They would like to know where they sit. Please act in accordance with the Local Government Act and the Community Participation Plan from now on. Thank you.
Okay, well, considering that really was off topic anyway, councillors, is there any questions? The Womble Task Force is not on the business paper. No, thank you. Item 2.7, we now have Mr. Angel to speak. Mr. Angel will be speaking against. Thank you, Mr. Angel.
Thank you. I'm speaking in regard to our submission to the Waste and Resource Strategy and why we regard the strategy as having some very forward thinking. We are against the component in relation to waste to energy. There are a number of reasons, very strong reasons, that we think waste to energy should be omitted from the Waste and Resource Strategy. The first is that waste to energy or incineration is a backward-looking step, so it is incompatible with the forward-looking nature of the strategy. The reason I say this is that, as I'm sure some or all of you know, Europe and the UK, including Wales, have had a history of waste to energy. They are now moving to close down those incinerators because they regard it as incompatible with reaching a circular economy. So while Australia is trying to deal with its waste much better and much greater recycling, then of course we shouldn't be going backwards and doing the old stuff. Secondly, the target for waste to energy is the material in the red bin, which, as you have seen in your strategy, contains a lot of recyclables. It is a far better approach to get those recyclables out of the red bin and to put them into higher value add recycling activity. That will lead to far more local jobs, and it will contribute far more to the circular economy, which at every level of government we are now pursuing. Thirdly, councils around Australia have expended a great deal of political capital defending waste to energy proposals. And I would suggest that there are more important components of the plan, such as FOGO, that council and councillors should spend their political capital on, rather than becoming embroiled in what will be a very serious dispute about the social licence to operate incineration. Finally, it is very important that we start educating the community to better sort those recyclables that are now unfortunately finding their way in the red bin. And it is that investment by council and the community and state governments in that diversion culture that will lead us far better to far greater environmental outcomes than incineration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. Are there any questions? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, you are quite difficult to hear at the moment, but I just thought I'd mention that. Mr. Angel, I did just want to clarify, when you refer to waste to energy, I assume you are talking the red bin waste. You're not talking about the organic, digestive, anaerobic process, are you?
That's correct. We're talking about mixed recyclables, which is what you find in the red bin, and it's those mixed recyclables that pose the greatest challenge in terms of being diverted away from higher value recycling, and they also pose the greatest challenge in terms of emissions control.
All right, thank you, Mr. Angel.
Are there any further questions of Mr. Angel? No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Angel. I now invite Ms. Riley to speak, and she's speaking for.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillor, staff and community. At Carryong Eco Garden, we acknowledge the Indigenous custodians of this land and we work with their spirits caring for Mother Earth. We ask questions like, what can nature teach us? And we know that there's no waste in nature. Resources, nutrients, carbon moves around in cycles. Humans have invented waste to describe stuff we don't need. The ABC's war on waste really raised community awareness and inspired people all around Australia to do better. This Central Coast Council resource strategy is redefining waste as a resource and supports a circular economy, and we think that's awesome. I attended one of the community consultations and there was huge support for FOGO, the Food Organics Garden Organics system, and for tip shops. As a long-time composter and worm farmer, it distresses me to see any organic matter ending up in landfill, where it rots slowly with very little oxygen, creating methane, which is a really potent greenhouse gas. We can do better, and the biggest step change we can make is to do what many councils around Australia, more than 43 councils in New South Wales, are doing, and that's adding our food organics and other organics that make up 59% of our red bin contents into our green bin and starting a FOGO system. This is the most important step we can do to make a better choice with what our so-called waste. Commercial composting of all this organic matter will produce high quality compost products for our local farms, for parks and our homes. I've spoken to Mike Ritchie from the MRA Consulting, a leading voice in waste issues in Australia. He has helped many councils do cost-benefit analysis of FOGO to calculate the vehicle kilometres travelled, the dollar cost per house or per tonne, diversion from landfill, and the greenhouse gas footprint of FOGO. He says we can learn from the mistakes of other councils and the benefits are many, including saving council money. He says the New South Wales EPA would never approve energy from waste if the council has not first removed the organic component via a FOGO system. On this issue, our submission is also clear that, as Jeff Angel has said, we are similarly opposed to energy from mixed waste. This is not the way to a circular economy. Energy from mixed waste is a dirty way to make energy. We need to be expanding clean, green, renewable energy. To quote David Suzuki, a world-renowned ecologist, Turning unwanted and usable trash into a valuable fuel commodity means communities are less likely to choose to reduce, reuse, and recycle it. Burning waste can seem easier and less expensive than sorting, diverting, and recycling it. But once it's burned, it can never be used for anything else. It's gone. So essentially, our submission says yes, yes, and more, and as soon as possible, but no to energy from mixed waste. We want you to go FOGO.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. Do I have any questions for Ms. Riley? I see no hands. Thank you, Ms. Riley. Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith, late addition.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Ms. Riley, I was just, I know we had an earlier conversation. I thought did you make a comment about Perth and some of those capital cities and their requirements for councils to implement FOGO?
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, no, this is something I learned from Mike Ritchie, talking to him, that Perth, Adelaide and Melbourne metropolitan areas all have a compulsory FOGO system for all their councils.
Okay. And so it's your understanding that our current green bin would accommodate FOGO, that there's no need to have any additional...
No, we won't need extra bins. It would just be a matter about the frequency, because we want to have those food organics going weekly to the commercial composting.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I have a question from Councillor Greenaway.
Thank you. Yes, I was speaking to you earlier about the FOGO system, and you mentioned that a council, I don't remember which one, had put some like YouTube clips or something up so people could look at how some people were a bit concerned about it initially, but then how they embraced it. Do you remember which councils they?
That was actually Lake Macquarie Council, has some clips on its sort of educational, waste education pages on its website or on its YouTube channel. I looked at those when I was doing the submission, and I also talked to the councillor Greg Piper, who said yes, there were some vocal opponents early on, but that on the whole, he says that his constituents are big supporters of the FOGO system now that they're used to it.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I see no further hands. Thank you, Ms. Riley. We have our last speaker, item 5.5, the notice of motion, Saving the Mariners. Councillor Holstein, you're going to go for a spell. I'm waiting for you to leave. You haven't left. He's gone. Councillor Holstein has a conflict of interest, so therefore he has been removed from the screen. I now invite Mr. Sean Millercamp to speak. The staff shall unmute you. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you all the councillors for the chance to speak today. I speak to you here today as a desperate CEO, a desperate member of the community. I'm speaking in favour of the motion, but I'm also against the staff recommendations of that motion that has been put forward. I want to confirm that the club is up for sale, and it's with great concern that the club is up for sale, and we're currently taking expressions of interest up until the 15th of this month in a couple of days' time. I'd like to confirm that there was previously strong support and partnerships with Wyong and Gosford councils, and the former councillors did develop a strong partnership through sponsoring and actively supporting our club that had tangible outcomes. I'd like to strongly support the request to hold a crisis meeting, because at the 11th hour for this club, we can leave no stone unturned, and we must do everything possible to keep the club here on the coast. To do anything less is just not good enough for our community. The reason I oppose the staff recommendation is because, unfortunately, it is misleading to say that the club enjoys a supportive and productive relationship with Central Coast Council. Yes, we do have a supportive one. We do have one that is positive and motivated and a lot of good personal relationships. But it must be made clear that it is purely a transactional relationship. We hire the venue, we pay our bills that go up every year, we lease land and we pay our rates that go up every year, but there is no partnership, there is no formal strategic relationship in place. So the decision that Mike Charlesworth took to sell the club is his and his alone, which I agree with, that is his to make. However, he makes this because there is no partnership and no confidence for him to do business on the coast. After 5 years of doing all the heavy lifting on Central Coast, on the Centre of Excellence at Tuggerah, where we have 600 people employed, we can get another 1,000 people employed there, but at the moment we need more support from council to get the planning and the timings done in the time that we need to get going. We can become a base camp for the Women's World Cup here. We can build a hotel, but we need to do more. And so to call for a crisis meeting is only obvious to do. Because if we can't convince new prospective owners that the time of the 3 items of the stadium, the centre of excellence in our community, are enticing enough to buy an A-League licence, then we're dead in the water. And if that's not enough for a crisis meeting, then this council doesn't want to do everything possible to save this club. I know I want to do everything possible to save this club. That's why I'm passionate about it. I won't leave any stone unturned. I thank you for your time, but please, I call to you with a plead. We can all band together and do more to get this to happen. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Yep, Councillor McLaughlin.
Have you got me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Thank you for coming in and speaking. Councillor Best has apology tonight. Unfortunately, he's not well, and I know he's had a meeting with you and discussed what we should try and do. I don't fully understand the background behind it. Not being this is my first term in council, but I do understand that the 2 councillors have been very supportive over the years to get the Mariners up, and I understand David Harris, the state MP, has been very supportive, and I think this is just common sense for what to do. Can I just ask you a question? Do you get an appearance fee from to turn up in and play? I understand the NRL games get an appearance fee. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, I believe that's correct from the NRL. I don't know all the details myself. We don't, and I suppose that's probably the point for this is there's lots of goodwill, there's lots of great words, but it's really tangible outcomes. Appearance fees aren't something that we have been given the opportunity for. That does make it harder. Our costs go up, and that's definitely something that would go a long way.
You've muted yourself, Councillor McLaughlin.
That's just one point there, but no, I take your point, and well, certainly I would like to see the council get in and get our state members and federal members behind it as well, and just see what we can do to keep the Mariners on the coast, which I think is the name of the game. That's really what you're trying to do, is it? Keep the Mariners on the coast?
That's all we're trying to do. Absolutely, it is.
Okay. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Councillor McLaughlin. I have a question. I guess I'm a bit perplexed as to where to go with this, but anyway, we've already had a meeting. So in terms of a crisis meeting, so council staff, myself, Mr. Murphy, have already had a meeting where we discussed several ways of supporting the Mariners. What do you mean by crisis meeting? Exactly what are you after? Because I thought in that meeting that we had made some headroads into the development side of the Mariners, and also in relation to potential sponsorship that you can get through our grant programs. Yeah, so I'm a bit confused as to what the crisis meeting would achieve that hasn't already been started a few weeks ago.
Yeah, look, I believe that it's a matter of leaving no stone unturned. So when the motion was up for a crisis meeting, it wasn't one that's that we had driven, but it's one that we are supportive of. That's there, and so what would it achieve? It can achieve more. You know, why are we taking our time on so many things? We can move faster and do more, because the time's ticking. We've got 2 days. That's there, and currently at the moment I've got words of support, but it's actual outcomes that we really need.
So outcomes as in, council has to follow due process. So are you saying that we should be doing something about our processes and in relation to regulations and DA applications? That's where we're at. You have a development arm that's trying to develop a block of land, but there's process and regulations around that. So how much faster are you wanting us to go in relation to that, I guess?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of avenues. The development is one opportunity that may fall through, because somebody could purchase the club and not purchase the development, and they're not related at all. So would a working group be productive? I do hear that there is working groups being formed for other codes that's there. I'd love to see a working group that's really working hard for the Mariners that's there, rather than me having to pick up the phone and keep chasing people every time.
Councillor Greenaway, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure of the discussions that everybody's been having, because I'm not particularly privy to them, but I just wondered when we talk about crisis talks, what's the actual crisis?
The crisis is that the club could be sold and relocated out the coast any day now. So there is currently the ACT government has offered 1.5 million a year for the Canberra bid to relocate the Mariners down to Canberra, or to acquire. So we're up against those sort of challenges right now. So right now we need support to make sure that we can attract the right investment and owners into the club.
But the Mariners are already making inquiries in other locations.
No, we're not making inquiries. The club's up for sale and could be relocated via the purchase. We don't want the club to move. That's what the crisis is. Rather than being bought by somebody and relocated, we want to be stayed right here. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenway. Councillor Hogan, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was just further to your question. I think Councillor Greenaway answered the question for me, Sean. I think you've made it quite clear, and thanks for coming in and speaking to us. So just to clarify that, so Canberra is offering the 1.5 mil to buy the club, and you're looking for sponsorship of 1.5 mil to keep the Mariners on the coast.
No, I'm not looking for that as such. What we are looking for is the ability to make sure that new investors are motivated to stay here. That could be via the development, via the stadium, via community engagement, but we need a group that's very clear on that. So it's not as cut and dry as we need money. It is a matter of saying to make sure that new investors who are looking to purchase the club are motivated to purchase the club and keep us here on the coast. They can come in many different forms, but that's why we really need to make sure we've got a working group moving forward on this.
So just subsequent to that, Sean, does the notice of motion cover off on that? Does the notice of motion cover off in what you are trying to achieve in terms of the crisis talk? Does it say who needs to be around that round table?
No, I believe it's just a call for a crisis meeting to come into play. So we can definitely put more work into that.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Councillor Sundstrom.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Millercamp. Can you clarify for us the relationship between the Mariners Football Club and the development and the Centre of Excellence, etc., at Tuggerah, and how does the sale of the club relate to that property?
Yeah. So there are currently 3 entities. The first entity is a non-for-profit academy that has 300 kids. That's there for our academy. Our football club is an entity that has the A-League licence. That is the entity that is up for sale. That's there. And then there is a third entity, Mariners Development, which is the property. They're not intrinsically linked. They're just owned by the same owner. At the moment, the football club is for sale. The property isn't officially for sale, but he has said to prospective purchasers that if you buy the football club, you could look at the property, but he'll only sell the property to someone who owns the football club. So we do have a scenario that the club could be purchased, but there is no change to the property.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? No? Okay, thank you. Councillors, I will now declare the public forum closed, and our council meeting will commence at 6:30. Thank you, everybody. See you then.